Welcome to See You on the Other Side, where the world of the mysterious collides with the world of entertainment. A discussion of art, music, movies, spirituality, the weird, and self-discovery. And now, your hosts, musicians and entertainers who have their own weakness for the weird, Mike and Wendy from the band Sunspot.
Wendy, I'm really excited that you were nominated for Percussionist of the Year
Hey,
at this
thank you.
year's Madison Area Music Awards.
Drummer percussionist.
Drummer / percussionist. Right, I'm not.
A slash title.
I don't want to get people think that you're a bongo player,
right?
or something
Or
like
just
that.
like I'm the triangle player, which
the-
don't get me wrong, would be awesome.
You're the tambourine girl.
Right. But no, thank you.
definitely not
Thank
that.
you very much. And thanks to everyone who voted for the Madison Area Music Awards and voted for Sunspot. And
Yeah, we sure do appreciate that.
we made it into several categories this year as finalists.
Yes. What are those categories?
The categories are Rock Album of the Year for Weirdest Hits. Which,
Weirdest hits, which is all songs
Here-
inspired by this podcast.
Yes, here on this podcast, we're very proud of that album because it was like the songs were born out of these episodes. So that's cool. The
Totally sweet.
first track on the album, Messiah Complex, is nominated for Hard Rock / Punk Song of the Year. So that was cool. I was happy to see that.
Yes.
And then our band Sunspot was nominated as Alternative Performer.
Yes.
Of the
so
year.
get your alternative on with us.
Yes.
And anyway, if you guys are interested, this is all for charity. This all goes
Right.
back to the music programs in the Madison area schools.
And that's why it's exciting because it shows that we have really generous friends and fans and supporters. So
Yes,
it was
I
cool
think
to
so.
see that we made it into so many because it's like, oh, hey,
I think
our
so.
people like to donate money to good causes.
Right. So this all goes right back into the Madison area school district and the music programs, which,
Right.
obviously music's a lot of fun. And with budgets and things like that, it's not always the highest
top
priority.
priority.
Well, no, I mean, because they got to get kids math, they got to get
That's
kids
right.
science and everything. And so what gets cut a lot of times are music programs. So this is just a way to help out those programs. Themamas.org
Right.
is where you can vote for Sunspot. We'll have details about that on the site. So
and we
if
might
that's
have to
something-
make another video.
Yes, we might
The last one got some
to show you where to vote.
good feedback. You're right.
But anyway, so it's just a nice thing. And Wendy, I hope you win the Percussionist of the Year. In
Oh, thank
fact,
you.
I'm going to murder the other percussionists.
No.
Maybe just
They're friends of mine. I
okay,
like them.
so we
Don't
won't
murder them.
You won't murder them. But maybe we can break their hand. I'll just break their hands. And so it's like, oh, you think you're the percussion? You think you're the drummer of the year, do you? Yeah,
Wow.
try to drum with a cast, buddy.
But you can, if you did vote in the first round, you are automatically qualified to vote in the final
Second round,
round.
yeah.
And I think, can new people join in and pay to vote just for the final round?
Everybody can vote.
Oh, cool. So if anybody else feels like donating $5 to help us actually win the awards, because we're in the finalist categories, but now we have to make it past that to the end
Right.
if we can, which would be fun because you know what?
Well, it just draws attention to the band. It draws attention to
Yeah.
the podcast, and it just gets more people in the umbrella of fun.
And
That's-
it gives us all a reason to party together.
Yes, it
and
does.
Celebrate.
It does. So anyway, so check that out. If you already did donate and vote, then you don't have to spend any more or anything like that. You can just come in and
thank
vote
you.
again. And thank you very much. You are awesome. And if you haven't, think about it.
It's not too late.
No, it's not too late. It's tax deductible. And we'll have a
right.
link to that in the show notes at othersidepodcast.com/87 is where you can find that.
So that was fun. They had the finalist announcement party last weekend, and after our show on Saturday, which went really well.
Yeah,
which
it was super fun.
We released the American Monsters EP.
Which you can find at sunspotuniverse.com, and you can download that for free right now.
Right, music, so much music. So the next day was the party, and I don't know, it was great news. So thank you all for being generous and giving us a reason to celebrate. And
Yes. And
Yes.
I've got other good news, Wendy.
What? More?
I am
Oh my
full
gosh.
of magic today.
Wow.
We've got a new 5-star review and rating
Whoa.
on iTunes.
Oh, that makes me happy. We haven't had one in a while.
Right.
So
And so if
nice to
you would
see.
like to have your 5-star review read on the air, just go into iTunes, see you on the other side, and just leave a 5-star review and we're going to read it for you.
That sounds great. So what's the review? I'm
Here's the
curious
review.
to hear it.
The title is oddly satisfying.
Ooh.
Yes, much like me, it's oddly satisfying. This is by WTW60.
All right.
I was not sure I was going to like this podcast since I take my paranormal pretty seriously and am heavily influenced by shamanic and magical thought. I listened to an episode based on recommendations from others and discovered that the interview segments are pure gold Well, thank you. And the intro segments are just fun with the hosts catching you up on what is going on with them.
Hey, all right.
I've been listening ever since and highly recommend this podcast for people who want to listen to intelligent conversation about the paranormal with strong pop culture elements.
All right. Well, that's great to
Yes,
hear.
thank you very much, WTW60.
Yes, we love getting feedback from anyone who's listening,
Mm-hmm.
and that's an especially great way to do it because it helps other people find our podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And so, thank you so much for taking the time to do that. Really appreciate it.
We really do. Thank you so much for the feedback and the nice words. And so, you know what we're not going to have to do this week?
What aren't we going to have to do?
Commit human sacrifice.
Oh, well, I guess I'll have to cross that off my list then.
Right,
I totally
okay.
thought we had to this week.
Yeah, so you can take that
All
virgin
right,
back.
Check. Done. Okay.
Yeah. Take that virgin back to the high school. We don't have to
Oh.
kill her.
Okay, so that's a normal way to start a conversation.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because that's what we're talking about this week. The topic of the week is human sacrifice.
Oh, nice light one. Nice light
Well,
topic.
It's really it's more part of the culture than I realized. And this was inspired. So this an article came out this week. There was a journal came out this week, and what they did was they examined 93 Austronesian cultures. Okay, Austronesian. What's that?
Okay.
That's all the indigenous cultures. If you think of Australia, New Zealand,
Oh, okay.
Micronesia, like all that,
Yeah.
like South Pacific stuff,
Yeah.
and then to Taiwan.
Okay.
And we think of Taiwan. Like, what do you think when you think of Taiwan? Electronics. Like you always
Yeah.
right. You think of electronics and things, or you think of like an island we're eventually going to go to war with China over, kind of thing. So right. So I didn't realize Taiwan had an indigenous population that
Oh,
wasn't
yeah.
like Chinese.
Okay.
In ethnic,
I didn't realize that
ethnicity
either.
origin. It was funny, actually. It was a couple like Thanksgivings ago or something. So whenever I spend the holiday with my family, I always try to bring some kind of interesting movies.
And man, I can only imagine the kind of movies you bring to Thanksgiving,
Right.
Mike.
So for the holidays,
So let me guess, not something like Christmas Vacation or Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, the ones that
no,
like,
we've already seen them.
yeah. Okay, so you're
you want something interesting, maybe that
Okay.
they ever haven't seen or wouldn't get. Because my mother will sometimes grab a movie and she'll get something interesting or something funny or family oriented or
Okay.
something. And so we can watch something like that, but I want to bring in something that maybe people haven't heard of, like a foreign film or a comedy or.
okay.
I mean, one time I brought in Lesbian Vampire Killers,
What?
which is a just
Mike.
comedy with James Corden from the Late Show, or the Late Show. James Corden. It was funny, but like little things like that, like little indie films that they may not see.
Just a normal average American.
They may not see
Thanksgiving.
normally. So one time I bring in Warriors of the Rainbow. Sidik Bale is the name of it, and it's like the most popular film in Taiwan.
Okay, how did you find this
I was
to
just-
select it? Just browsing.
I was just looking for something
Okay,
interesting,
gotcha.
and it was all about the struggle of like the indigenous Taiwanese people
Okay.
versus their when the Japanese had occupied it. And, like,
Oh, okay.
Like so, they've got this like traditional native tribal kind of jungle people on the
Yeah.
on the island versus the who we usually consider the Imperial Japanese. So
Okay.
the bad guys in World War II movies.
Yeah.
And they're the bad guys in this Taiwanese. Anyway, I thought it'd be interesting. Was really popular, and I'm like, okay, and it's an action movie too. It's like one of the most violent films. Great. Like heads are getting
A
chopped
nice
off.
like heartwarmer for the holidays.
Right, and it's ultra violent. It's a pretty good movie. It's very emotional. It's sad because you see, a population with a lot of the issues that have happened to our own native population in the United
Yeah.
States, like alcoholism and stuff. When everybody gets put in one place, and then the imperial powers take it over. So that part is sad. But then they get their revenge. I mean, there's plenty of bloodletting too. Like plenty of Japanese get their throats slit open and things like. Anyway, Warriors of the Rainbow.
How old is this movie?
Like 4 or 5 years old. So it's
okay.
not very old at all.
All right, I was thinking it sounded. I don't know why, but
It's like a modern action movie, but it has paranormal elements in it too.
Oh.
So you take some of the paranormal of the spirits, and because the rainbow and there's like they walk this rainbow bridge kind of thing. So it's the tribe has the supernatural elements in it as they
Cool.
try to regain their cultural identity.
I see. Okay.
I mean, eventually it all goes down. Like it.
Yeah.
There's a reason that like that indigenous people's not in charge of Taiwan right now
Right.
because they got the Asian culture dominated it.
Mm-hmm.
But the reason I'm saying that is that that's one of the places that practiced human sacrifice.
Okay.
So you go into these Austronesian cultures, and I'd never heard the term Austronesian before.
Yeah, that's new to me as well.
So the journal article about this, and here's when they're testing, like what kind of societies had human sacrifice. All right. So here's from the article. Evidence of human sacrifice was observed in 40 of the 93 cultures sampled. So
Wow.
so 43% of the cultures in that area
Oh man.
practice human sacrifice. And so here's the big difference. 5 of the 20, there was egalitarian societies, which means that people were kind of all the same. So egalitarian, you think of, there's no social classes. You know, everybody is pretty much treated equally.
Okay.
You know, that's what we try to have an egalitarian society in the United States. Right. Let's see. I mean, it has been working for us, but that's the model.
Yeah. Okay.
And so human sacrifice is only practiced in 25% of those egalitarian societies. Now,
Only. I mean.
30. But the thing is, it's so moderate. So they say stratified. Stratified is the word for different social
sure.
classes.
Okay.
So you've got like a ruling class. Maybe you have slaves. Maybe you have servants and things like that. 37% of the stratified societies had human sacrifice, like the moderately stratified. And for highly stratified societies, which had several different social classes, and maybe you would have like a ruling class. Think about in the hierarchy, think about the monarchy and how that passes from generation to generation.
Okay.
You got like a ruling
Sure.
class, a ruling family, an
Right.
aristocracy, and then like slaves at the bottom. So you have slaves to the aristocracy. That's a highly stratified society. 67% of those cultures
Whoa.
had human sacrifice. So, that doesn't sound surprising, because, well, a lot of times who are you going to sacrifice? You're going to sacrifice slaves. If people are treated like they're property,
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
then
They're-
you can sacrifice them. Now, if people are treated like brothers, egalitarian,
one
like
of us.
right, everybody's the same. Yeah, you don't stab them.
It could be me. It
Right.
could just as well be me. Whereas if you're the king and you're like, no,
Set that
it's never
guy
going to be
down on
me.
the slab and open him from
Right.
nave to chops.
Yeah. Oh,
Right. Okay. Here's my favorite quote. Unpalatable as it might be, our results suggest that ritual killing helped humans transition from the small egalitarian groups of our ancestors to the large stratified societies we live in today. So what this article is saying is that human sacrifice was part of the process.
Building the aristocracy.
Well, or building the kind of societies we have today, which some people would say that's good.
Yeah.
Because they're like, well, we have iPods. I guess I guess that's an example from 2003. We have iPhones.
Right.
We have virtual reality.
Yeah. We have GPS.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've got those things. So some people would say society is great now because we don't just, our mortality rate has gone from like 50% to
Right,
like 10%
yeah.
in the United States,
Yeah.
And so that's changed completely. But on the other hand, other people would say that modern society maybe isn't that great because we check our email all day long and look at Facebook instead of actually,
Right. Enjoying the moment.
Right, instead of
enjoying the
living in the
relationships
moment
and the
and-
people and the
right.
know,
And,
things
teenagers
happening.
aren't going on dates anymore. They're addicted to pornography. So like, okay, so what's the good part of society? What's the bad parts? But the thing is, human sacrifice, their results say that was part of that creation of the class system.
Yeah.
And the class system, everything is based off of that. Some people rule, some people fight, some people work.
Yeah.
Some people lay around. They're called musicians.
Ba-dum-bum.
Hey, we love those guys. We are those guys. As we say, as we're at work right now on a
I was gonna
Thursday
say.
at 11:30, we're talking about this stuff. But the thing is that so human sacrifice was part of that. And I think that's easy to kind of see because if you live in a society where somebody at the top can tell you, "I need you to grab this guy for me because we're gonna cut him open to appease the gods. Can you just grab that person real quick and we got to kill him to sacrifice for him?" Like if you live in a society like that, like that's going to develop a pretty stark class system.
True.
So this article made all the rounds this week.
Okay.
And I've got my senses attuned for anything.
Sure,
involving
right.
Something unusual. And since human sacrifice is such a part of occult movies and
Oh my
paranormal and
gosh,
things,
it's everywhere because it's so
it's
terrifying.
everywhere, baby.
It is.
And it also scares the crap out of you.
Right. Yeah. It understandably so.
Think about if you're the one chosen to be sacrificed.
Like Joe versus the volcano.
Like Joe versus the volcano. That's a good way. That's a great first example. Joe versus the volcano.
That was the first thing that popped into my head, actually.
Tom Hanks class before he got all serious and stuff like that.
Right.
Tom Hanks used to be pretty funny.
Yes.
And Joe versus the volcano is an excellent example of human sacrifice. And that's the kind of thing, though. I mean, we laugh at Joe versus the volcano because we're thinking, okay, and that's a Polynesian country. So that's not too far from Australasia. But that kind of like the South Pacific Islanders, they're cannibals, they're headhunters, human sacrifice. But wait.
What?
There is, the most famous human sacrifice story does not come from the Aztecs. It does not come from the Egyptians. It comes from the good old Bible.
Oh, okay.
That's right. The Old Testament with the vengeful and angry God himself. And okay, so looking up Old Testament stories. And a lot of you already know this story, but in case you don't, I'm going to go over it. And I'm going to read you the kids' version.
Okay, thanks. I need that.
Because the kids' version is the most fun. Because there's a version with like pictures and stuff like that. Okay. So like there's 3 patriarchs of like Judeo-Christianity.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the OGs, the original, is Abraham.
Okay.
So they call Christianity, they call Judaism, they call Islam Abrahamic religions.
Oh, okay.
Because the stories of Abraham all feature prominently in those religions. So if you're a Muslim or you're a Christian or you're a Jew, Abraham's in there for all of them.
Mm-hmm.
And he's one of the founders of the religion. And, God's appearing to him, and God won't let Abraham and Sarah, his wife, have a kid. And he goes through all this stuff. One of his buddies is Lot. And Lot is, speaking of a guy that sacrifices, he'll get his own episode sometime. But like,
there's a lot to talk about.
There's a lot to talk about. Hey, everybody, that's so funny. It's so funny. Okay. So eventually God lets Abraham and Sarah have a child. So let me read you from
Please.
This is the child's version.
Okay.
It's Genesis 21.
Okay.
Sarah had a baby boy named Isaac. Now God wanted to know if Abraham would obey him. God told him to sacrifice Isaac on a mountain. Abraham loved his son very much. He did not want to sacrifice Isaac, but Abraham wanted to obey God. God told Abraham to go to a mountain. He took Isaac and 2 men with him. Abraham and Isaac rode on a donkey. They traveled for 3 days. The 2 men stayed with the donkey. Abraham and Isaac walked up the mountain.
No,
Abraham took a knife. Isaac took some wood. Isaac asked, "Where was the lamb we were going to sacrifice?" Abraham told him not to worry. Abraham built an altar, and he put wood on it. So then he tied Isaac down and puts him on the altar. He holds the knife over Isaac. Abraham is all ready to sacrifice his son. But then an angel shows up. He tells Abraham not to sacrifice Isaac, and that since Abraham obeyed God, God loves Abraham.
Called your bluff.
Abraham looks around. He sees a ram in the bushes. He's got to sacrifice something. So he grabs the ram and sacrifices the ram on the altar. And God is happy because Abraham obeys him.
Oh, my.
And now he's going to bless Abraham's family.
Okay.
Abraham and Isaac go home. Abraham obeyed God. And he was willing to let his son die. Abraham, lives a life, goes on to found the
That's
rest
got to
of
be
Judaism
real
and
nice
stuff
if you're
like
the kid, just to know that your dad.
Just, your dad
would be
will just kill you.
Okay. Hey, God said so.
Yeah. I guess if God is telling you these things directly and appears to you directly, then like that's a different kind of story. Like if you just like have a dream or something, like I think God told me to kill my kid,
Yeah.
you'd probably freak out about it. But this is a story about obedience, right there. Like it's, and so human sacrifice
Disturbing.
is right in the Bible. Like, that's the most famous story because then God comes in at the end, is like, hey,
Right. Hold on.
Hold on, little guy.
Wait.
Right. And so, but that's right in there. Well, there's also an incidence of sacrifice that happens in the Bible. In the book of Judges,
Okay.
there's a guy named Jephthah. Okay. So Jephthah has a daughter, and but he's got to go to war. And he says if he comes back and if he wins the war, he'll do, he'll sacrifice whoever's the first person that walks through the door.
I'll give you anything if you just help me win this.
Have you ever been in a tight spot and you prayed a little bit or something? You're like, oh man, I really need the help on this. and you said like, I will give up something if I get what I want here.
I don't know. Probably.
Oh, I've totally done that.
Okay.
And I know that's us. Like we're making deals,
Yeah.
you
Sure.
know, like, but
Of course.
like deal making is such a funny thing because like we're making deals in our head with what, with who? Like we're like, okay, God, I tell you what, you let the Packers win this game and I won't drink beer all week.
Oh.
Right? It's always something like that. Or, you know, people make deals for like,
Yeah.
I will do, you know, if it's somebody's sick or something, but they're like, they're trying to make some kind of deal.
Mm-hmm.
And it sounds like this is what Jephthah's doing.
Okay. Sure. Right.
Right
He
here,
just
like,
he wants to win really badly, and he'll do anything.
I
for
will
it.
sacrifice. I will do
Yeah.
anything to win this. And so I don't know if he says it aloud or he says it in his head, or I've always made those deals in my
Yeah.
head. You know, God, let me have this, and then I'll do this later. So then it shall be that whatsoever cometh forth of the doors of my house to meet me, when I return in peace from the children of Ammon, shall surely be the Lord's, and I will offer him a burnt offering. Yeah. So he's going to burn
man.
something for God for letting him win the battle.
Okay.
So he wins the battle.
Hey.
Uh-oh.
Who's gonna pay?
Who's going to pay? All right. So as he comes back home, his virgin daughter runs out to greet him.
No.
Okay. Well, he's like, you know what? Jephthah's like, I gotta take care of business. And she begs for 2 months to roam the hills and weep with my friends.
That is so sad.
Right. After which she comes back and he does as he has vowed.
Wow.
So he burns his daughter to death
Unreal.
because of a victory in battle.
Oof.
Now, okay, there is some of the rabbinic scholars who study the Old Testament. Well, if you're a rabbinic scholar, a rabbi, that means it's not just the Old Testament to you; it's the whole thing.
Right.
So, but they say she wasn't sacrificed, but she was forbidden to marry and remained a spinster her entire life, fulfilling the vow that she would be devoted to the Lord.
Oh, okay.
So either he killed his daughter or he ruined her
killed her
life.
social life.
Or he killed her biological destiny.
Yeah,
Oh, I'm
yeah.
sorry. You're going to have to be a spinster. Why?
Yeah, but that's a lot
'Cause
different.
I won a battle.
That's a lot different than burning.
Yes.
Like, murdering and like,
Right. Than
you know.
murdering your daughter.
I mean, don't get me wrong. It's not great.
No, well, okay. So sacrificing a child for battle. Now, oh man, I want to talk about Game of Thrones. But if you guys aren't up, I mean, because
I
season
haven't seen
6
the
has
last-
started. So you haven't seen season 5
I haven't seen
yet.
5 yet. No.
Okay. Number 1, season 5 is
I need to watch it,
totally
don't I?
killer.
Yeah.
And this is where it separates from the books.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh,
So-
right. Yeah.
Season 5 is where they get to parts of the story that George R.R. Martin hasn't gotten to yet. But like for earlier seasons, we can talk about. So you know who the Red Priestess is,
We
right?
can talk about.
Melisandre.
Yes.
We can talk about Melisandre. And Melisandre, the Red Priestess, she worships the Lord of Light. R'hllor. There's like an apostrophe in there. Now they don't say that word too much. They just call him the
No.
Lord of Light in the TV
Right.
show. In the book, it's R'hllor all the time. But they don't want to make her sound stupid by saying R'hllor.
Like a serious scene, and then all of a sudden,
Right.
that comes out.
But the funny thing about the Red God in Game of Thrones is that's the only like religious that it seems to work.
Oh, right.
Like that's the only religious stuff that seems to work because the Red God's bringing people back to life, and it's she
Answering their
she
prayers.
she births the shadow creature,
Yeah.
and so but the Lord of Light answers people's prayers, but the Lord of the Light also demands blood.
Right. Okay.
So all those people, there's a great scene in the show and in the books where they're burning people on the shore. So if you guys haven't seen Game of Thrones, or if you need a little quick reminder, Stannis is the brother of the king who dies, and he wants to be king himself. And so he meets
He'll
this.
do anything for it.
He will do anything for it because he believes he is right. And he meets a woman that says it's his destiny to be king and to be this great warrior, and that he's this great warrior reborn and stuff. And she is a priestess for this Lord of Light, the Red God. And he goes with it. His wife is very religious. So his wife, we'll talk about women being more religious than men in a second too. But, and so his wife's like, well, the Red God demands blood, so we need to burn unbelievers. So the people that wouldn't submit to the Lord of
Yeah.
Light, they burn him at the stake.
yeah.
And that was sacrifice for battle.
Okay.
And they had to find king's blood. So the idea was they were looking for
Oh, right.
people that had
Yeah.
the blood of the king. So they were looking for his brother's bastard children
Right.
to burn alive as a sacrifice so that they would be victorious in battle. And so that's human sacrifice. I mean, goes right from the Bible straight to Game of Thrones. 2 great books.
Nice.
But yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
that kind of thing. So, and human sacrifice also features in the 5th season of Game of Thrones.
Okay. Well, I'll look out for
it'll
that when I
have-
watch
look
it.
out for some human sacrifice. But I mean, that's not just, I mean, we talk about sacrifices before battle and even sacrificing your child. I mean, that's not just in the Bible. That's also in Greek mythology.
Ah, yes.
So the Trojan War, okay. I mean, there's that movie Troy with like Brad Pitt as Achilles
Yeah.
and Brian Cox as Agamemnon.
Gesundheit.
So Agamemnon's a great leader. You know, he's a great Greek general. And so the Trojan War starts when Paris of Troy decides to steal this Greek king's wife.
Okay.
So he's in Troy, which they think is in modern day Turkey, Asia Minor.
Okay.
And I mean, the whole thing was that in the original that the gods decided, like he did a favor for the gods. So Aphrodite gave him the most beautiful woman in the world, who was supposedly this Greek king Menelaus' wife, Helen,
Right.
and Helen of Troy. Anyway,
Right.
so he comes on, he steals her, brings her back to Troy, and then everybody goes crazy, and Asia Minor lights up, baby. No, I mean,
Yeah.
so what happens is then the Greeks got to come over and they got to go attack Troy to get this guy's wife back. Agamemnon is one of the great Greek generals. And, well, in the story of the Iliad, which is Homer's tale, Homer the blind, epic Greek poet, Agamemnon sacrifices his daughter,
Man, they're so easy to just-
Iphigenia. He sacrifices Iphigenia, because I'm tight, to make it so that they'll sail over, like the armies will sail over successfully.
Wow.
And, you know, obviously that doesn't make him, you know, very popular and stuff like that. But so he's got to go to war, and then he sacrifices his daughter for the sake of the battle.
Wow.
And when we talked about this story when we were studying the Iliad when I was in high school, I made a little diorama of it.
Oh, cool.
And then
Like a shoebox diorama?
yeah, like it's like a kind of diorama. And then I played Children of the Grave by Black Sabbath as the background.
That's awesome.
So anyway, so it's Greek mythology too, sacrificing your child for battle. And that's not the only sacrifice in the Iliad. There's also Achilles, Brad Pitt,
Okay.
in the movie.
Yeah.
Well, Achilles sacrifices like some prisoners of war so that their battle will go well.
Okay.
And they think that this one might have there's an article in the LA Times that it might have a historic basis. So they're excavating some like 10th to 7th century BC pyres in a cemetery of ancient Crete. Crete is an island off of Greece
Okay.
where King Midas was the king of Crete. Remember the guy that could touch anything and turn to gold, but it really was a curse when he hugged his daughter.
Mm-hmm. Ah, yes.
So they're doing some research on Crete. They find the skeleton of a man whose arms were bound behind him and his throat cut so violently that he was decapitated. So evidence of human sacrifice has been found in ancient civilizations of the Eastern Mediterranean, but this is the first discovery that matches Homer's ritual execution beside a pyre. We found a slaughtered man about 30 to 40 years old next to a funeral pyre, the researcher said during a recent walk among the terraced hillside vineyards and the olive groves near the site. So this is their discussion with the reporter or whatever, as he's like, they're walking through beautiful Crete. And he's like, so it was right over there. We saw the man decapitated for human sacrifice.
Gosh.
So anyway, they talk about that in the Iliad,
Okay.
where Achilles, cuts a bunch of throats right next to the funeral pyre.
Boy, he wants to win.
He wants to win bad,
Yeah.
so he's gonna slaughter some people. And Achilles is a hero, right? And so that's the thing. So human sacrifices is baked into like our culture and stuff, and it's part of all of these ancient rituals. This ritual murder. I found a very cool list of bizarre methods of human sacrifice.
Oh,
So I thought we could talk about that. We'll link to the list and stuff like that. I thought we could talk about that list a little bit, and maybe
give nightmares.
maybe we can talk about and maybe we can talk about which is your least favorite way
Okay.
of being sacrificed. Like,
Okay.
let's say we're chosen. Let's say what happens is like So let's say
You can select your method of.
so President Obama comes
Execution.
out and says, like, to win the war on terror, we're going to have to sacrifice Mike and Wendy from Sunspot and the See on the Other Side
no.
podcast. That's the only thing that's going to work. So the ruling class once again tells the musicians when it's time to die. So, okay, buried alive. Now, who got buried alive?
That sounds horrible.
Well, so when the pharaohs died, I mean, the pharaohs had the tombs and they had,
Yeah.
you know, pyramids and all that kind of stuff. Well, pyramid's pretty big for just one guy. So the whole household went with him. Like the servants and slaves and court musicians
Okay.
might be drugged and then buried in the tomb as well. So they were sacrificed so that the pharaoh could still have everybody together.
Yeah. Keep the party.
Keep the
going.
party going in the afterlife.
Yeah, sure.
So it would suck to work for a guy. Like imagine so you got a
right.
job, you got some crap job working in a cubicle, your boss dies and they're like, you gotta go too because he's gonna need you to
Right.
run Excel spreadsheets in the afterlife.
Right. And you're like, wait, no, I thought the afterlife was going to be party time. Sorry. Still need you.
Yep. That's it. Nope. That is hell. You go to hell to work it's like
Right.
Excel spreadsheets for eternity working for your boss. All right. Gift giving and decapitation. So in West Africa, when they would have a big celebration, well, they
Oh,
would give
no.
gifts like Christmas.
Oh, gosh.
So part of it's like Christmas.
Yay.
Like, oh, hey, that's great, guys. We all get gifts. And then they killed a ton of people,
Boo.
usually prisoners and slaves. So once again, we're talking about the social status. Who gets killed? You know, it's not the president's son. It's not
Right,
the
of
priest's
course.
son.
Yeah.
It's the slaves and the prisoners of war that get executed, and they get their heads cut off.
Wow. Brutal.
Okay. Oh, this is a particularly weird one. So this is human sacrifice in India, like ritualistic assassinations.
Okay.
Okay. So they talk about the Thuggee guards who worship the Hindu goddess Kali. Now, the Thuggee guards are probably most famous from being in Indiana Jones and the Temple of
Wait,
Doom.
is thuggy is that like a proper,
Yeah, Thuggee. Like,
not like an adjective, like they're thug like.
oh, right. Oh, yeah, yeah. Okay. No. That's where that's where our word comes from.
Oh, okay.
So it's
okay.
a group, like, you know, we say
All
like a guy's like a thug.
I thought you meant they were just like these big guards that were like thuggy. Like
They were so they were big, like
Okay.
Thuggies. Like the Thuggies were like a group of dudes.
yeah. Oh,
like,
okay.
like that they killed people that they were trying to please the goddess. And it's also in the movie Gunga Din, which you watched. It's a great, if you love Cary Grant, and I love Cary Grant.
Yeah.
It's a great movie. Seems slightly racist as anything from the 1930s. Like you watched Gone with the Wind and you're like, oh, yeah,
Slightly.
it's a little bit of... So the
Not
thing
so
is,
comfortable watching this.
well, you have to, right. Like, don't watch at the next diversity meeting you have.
Right.
But the thing is, you can still appreciate that movies from the past,
Right.
like, you know, that they're still good movies, even though
and it's in the past.
right, they have different ideas about things. Anyway, so they would strangle people to death with a handkerchief.
No.
Yeah, with a handkerchief. What I hope though was that it wasn't a dirty handkerchief, because there's nothing worse than being murdered by a crazy group of dudes with a dirty
They just
handkerchief.
blew their nose in it or something.
Right. This
Gross.
is for Kali, and then they'd rob them and stuff. You know, they would do it to keep it going.
Yeah, that's brutal.
But yeah, so that a kind of human sacrifice. So like, where are we getting to? Decapitation sounds horrible. Getting murdered with a dirty handkerchief.
Nasty.
Ooh. You could always be pushed off something,
Okay.
like, you know, pushed to your death.
Sure. Off a cliff or something, or
Yeah.
or the volcano, like in
Yep.
Joe's case.
Right. That's exactly right. And, you know, some of the Mayans, that's one of the ways that they would sacrifice. That's a lot of times when people think, the first thing they think about sacrifice, if they don't think about like Joe versus the volcano, then they will go to the Central and South American native cultures,
sure.
like Mayans and Aztecs,
Okay.
because they did practice sacrifice. And they practiced it all the way up until the conquistadors came. Mm-hmm. I mean, and then, you know, and the conquistadors sacrificed them to the god money,
Right.
looking for the lost city of gold. You know, did you ever see Apocalypto?
No.
Okay, that's...
Sounds cool.
Yeah, Apocalypto is
The name.
Right, it's a great... after Mel Gibson had his drunken driving episode or whatever, like he didn't like nobody wanted him to star in a movie, whatever, because he said
Right,
some crazy
yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
And, you know, I was like, oh God, Mel. And so like, but he could still direct movies because when he made that Passion of the Christ film,
Yeah.
it was the most successful independent movie ever made.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, so it made like $250 million,
Yeesh.
and no major studio had put up the money. So like Mel
That's
had as
impressive.
much money as he wanted to put into his next movie.
Oh,
So he
okay.
decides to make the next movie Apocalypto, and it's all based on the Central American native, and it's all in like their ancient language.
Oh, wow.
So that's cool.
that is cool.
And I don't know how historically accurate or anything like that is,
Sure.
but it still feels like that when people are speaking the language instead
Right.
of speaking English.
And it's not a language that's you're used to hearing,
Correct.
right? Even
So-
if it's not English, it's still.
So that makes it feel like that. Well, anyway, you have this nice tribe, this nice family, and then this guy gets captured by this warring tribe and taken to like this pyramid to be sacrificed.
Okay.
And so the story is about how he escapes the sacrifice,
Oh,
and like
cool.
the rest of the movie is him getting chased and stuff. So in that movie, they pretty much decapitated him. That's how they did sacrifices.
Mm-hmm.
But just talking about the Mayan, pushing people to their death,
Yeah.
that made me think of Apocalypto,
Yeah.
which is a
Okay.
no matter your feelings on Mel Gibson, has some great action scenes in it.
Okay.
So I'm not going to spoil it for you. Totally worth it. Okay, some people. This kind of goes along with Buried Alive, but some people get killed for architecture. Yeah. I mean, there's a story in China about how there's thousands of people inside the Great Wall of
Oh,
China.
yeah.
Now you've been to the Great Wall of China. Did you see
Yeah.
anybody?
No.
Okay.
I mean, I saw plenty of. Yeah, I saw people.
But
lots and lots
nobody
of people.
inside the wall, like the cask of Amontillado.
Yeah. Yeah. No. I mean, we were just on top of the wall, not inside it. So.
Okay. And even in Japan, they would have like
But
they would
were
bury
those-
people inside like a new building, and that would
As
be
a
part-
human sacrifice to say,
to strengthen the building.
wow, oh,
So that is something. That's something they did in Asia. Burning alive is another way to go. And the Druids like to do that.
the Wicker Man.
That's right. The Wicker Man. They would burn people alive, and for harvest, for good luck, or just because it's party time.
Oh man,
The May Queen that they talk about in
so brutal.
Stairway to Heaven, just a sprinkling for the May Queen. Oh, the Aztecs also skinned people alive.
Oh,
So the particular
Man,
god, Tialek, required weeping boys to be sacrificed. And then they were bound to a post, shot full of arrows, and then skinned by a priest. And the Earth Mother, Teotinian, she required the female victims skinned as well. So if you were chosen, but the thing is, if you were chosen, it wasn't some kind of,
punishment,
it was like you were blessed.
like
You
an
were-
honor.
Yeah, you were.
Yeah.
You know, how awesome is it to be that you get to be the one who gets skinned alive?
So it's kind of like
High five.
the suicide bombers of today, sort of
Right,
thing.
like, hey, you get to go to
you're
glory.
gonna be, yeah.
You get to go to glory. I mean, that's a really interesting way of manipulating people to kill themselves,
Right.
or showing control
Yeah,
over
right,
another person.
totally.
Like, oh yeah,
No, it's cool,
we're gonna make them want to do it.
right?
We're gonna make it an honor. Good Doctor Who episode. It's the first Doctor, and this particular episode's still around. As in, the BBC didn't throw out the episode. It's
good.
called the Aztecs.
Okay.
And they go back in time to the time of the Aztecs. And actually, the Doctor's companion thinks that they can change history and tries to prevent the Aztecs from. She's like, we can show them how not to have human sacrifice.
Okay, cool.
So they actually tries to stop the human sacrifice in
So nice.
that episode. And the Doctor falls in love in that episode.
Aw.
Too. It's a nice one. Okay, so which is your least favorite so far?
Least favorite?
Yeah.
Well, probably I'm gonna go with the skinning alive. That or the decapitation, like because with the knife thing.
Yeah.
But my favorite one, the one that I would pick,
Yeah.
dropping, like falling off a cliff or something, like or getting shoved or whatever.
Yeah, because at least I think you would get that. You would get that kind of some kind of adrenaline rush. It would feel like a
Yeah.
bungee jump until the point that it was over.
And it would go quickly, I would imagine. It wouldn't be like, I mean, getting skinned alive. That sounds just very
'Cause we're-
painful.
Like, let's say they start with your fingers. Like, oh God, there's
Right.
so much skin.
But yeah, that seems like, I guess that sounds like the least painful. And as you pointed out, you might even get a little high from the,
Yeah, you're like,
the
yeah,
adrenaline.
There's a Metallica song. No, I'm sorry. Oh, I just mixed up Megadeth and Metallica.
Oh no, you didn't.
Well, Dave Mustaine used to be the guitar player in Metallica, so I guess that's okay. But There's a Megadeth song off their most popular album, Countdown to Extinction, called High Speed Dirt. And it's about skydiving and your parachute doesn't open.
Ooh.
So I think if you were going to go and you're going to like jump or something like that or be pushed off, like
That's what it would feel like.
well, you would listen to High Speed Dirt on your way down.
Okay.
So you get to listen to Megadeth, you get all excited inside, and then
Get all pumped up.
and then it's done.
Yeah, it's over.
You know.
So which way is your least favorite way?
Well, the dirty handkerchief I think would be the smelliest
You
way.
seemed very offended by that one.
It's just like, oh God, with the handkerchief. You can't just like get a knife to the
Right.
head or something and just
Your
take it out.
last sensation of life on the planet is a stinky
Decapitation
rag.
I don't like either though.
Oh yeah.
Because the thing is that they show you their
Yeah.
like the whole thing where your eye your eyes are still
And I mean, the way you described it didn't sound like it was like a guillotine, like just one whoosh and it's over. It sounded like
They
somebody
just hack
taking
your
a
head
knife.
off.
Like,
Yeah.
it sounded really nasty.
well, I mean, but even with the guillotine, you know, the idea
Oh,
that your
right.
eyes are still moving. So the movie
So you roll his eyes around every time he says that.
So The Exorcist 3. The Exorcist 3, this is when I first heard this.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, you should see The Exorcist 3 because the rest of the sequels are crap, but The Exorcist 3 is good.
I don't want nightmares.
They talk
no.
about decapitation and being able that your head is still, that you're still conscious for like 7 seconds after decapitation. So that's
So you might see your body like without
bingo,
the head on it.
which is why at the
Ew.
guillotine they would show people.
No.
Yeah, they would show people their own heads or their own bodies after their head was separated from their body.
Oh man,
And
these are awful.
And they are awful. And that's a plot point in The Exorcist 3, like that happens.
Okay,
That was the
I
first
see.
time I heard that. And it made me like, I mean, I was 13 when I saw that movie and I just scared the
Oh
crap
my
out of me.
gosh. Yeah, it makes your skin crawl. Let's think
Right.
about it.
So, anyway,
Eyes.
all right. So let's go back to the South Pacific.
Oh yes, please.
Fiji sounds
Yes.
like a nice place to visit. Sounds like a
Lovely.
nice place to fall in love and get married.
Yeah.
Except the minute you become a widow in the ancient culture, you'd get strangled to death.
Bummer.
Based on the belief that a deceased husband should be buried with his wife. In the case of great chiefs, their deaths simultaneously brought forth an asphyxiation-based demise of various little wives. So if you were a chief and you had a bunch of wives, they all went with you to the afterlife.
Wow.
Oh God! And then the women are referred to as the carpeting of the grave.
Ew.
So
Gosh.
right. So we're going through different kinds of human oppression on each other. That the great chief, like you don't even get considered the equal, or like if you're a concubine or whatever, you are considered the carpeting of the man's grave.
Wow. Wow. Just wow.
So Fiji in ancient times was not a great place to be a lady.
Yeah.
So okay. So least favorite of all these, strangling. I mean, to me, I'm still gonna go with dirty handkerchief. You burned alive.
Skinning alive.
Skinning? Oh yeah, because skinning goes for a long time. And there's a lot of pain involved. I figure burning though, you could also smell your flesh.
Ew.
Right.
You're very about the like smell sensation. You're worried about the dirty hanky.
Because it's the last thing you have. And if the last thing you remember, like, it's like, is that barbecue? Right? If that's the last thing you remember. You know, one thing I thought was interesting. So this is something when I was doing research on this, and I had seen at the National Museum of Ireland in Dublin, the bog people.
Okay, what's
Okay.
that?
Well, people like humans preserved, like they die like in a bog.
Oh, okay.
And as they die in a bog, like they're mummified in a way.
Oh, cool.
So they get preserved. Their skeleton can be like dissolved, but like their skin, I mean, turns dark and leathery. And
That's nasty.
so you can see the bog people at different museums in Europe. And so I saw
Wow. Okay.
there's a whole exhibit in Ireland about
So
that.
how, like, what age did these people? What era and time did they?
Oh, so they have a whole bunch of different kinds of bog people. So, but the particular people that they think were human sacrifices are from the Bronze Age. So like a couple of thousand years ago. And they were just killed in a particular kind of way. Like they were all killed like with throat slitting.
wow.
You know, kind of thing. So
Yeah.
like they,
tossed them in the bog
and they toss them in the bog.
oh man.
And so like these bog people that we see, like, oh, that's cool. Like they're preserved like mummies and stuff. probably were human sacrifices for some kind of, I mean, and they could have been prisoners of war. I mean, you don't know exactly why, but I mean, for the crops or for battle or for anything. And, when you think that this stuff is sick and we're sitting here talking about how disgusting everything is and, like, oh my God, they're killing people and burning to death and dirty handkerchiefs all up in your business. Okay. Well, human sacrifice is also the main tenet of Christianity. Okay? So Jesus died for our sins.
Yeah.
What does that mean? God said, I'll let you kill my son, or you sacrifice my son so that you guys can be forgiven for your sins. So there needed to be some kind of sacrifice in order for us to be forgiven. And the sacrifice is...
the coolest guy on the planet.
Right. JC getting strung up on a cross. And, I mean, I don't know. Don't they say, like, crucifixion, you die by asphyxiation?
Oh, I don't know.
It's not like the blood or whatever. And that really, it's not nails in your hands. It's nails in your wrist.
Right.
Because if it was nails in your hands...
you just fall off.
Yeah, it would just... The nail would rip through your thing. So it has to be in something with more muscle and bone. And that's your wrist. So anyway, but so human sacrifice in, like, the main religion of most people in the United States is right in there.
Right.
And because of that, they call it the New Covenant or whatever. At least they did when I used to be a churchgoer. Because of that, they didn't have to do any of the more Old Testament stuff. So Jesus getting killed, being sacrificed, means that you don't have to keep...
cleared away the old, like, traditions and...
Right, you don't have to keep kosher animore.
Okay.
So that rule, because that's part of the old Hebrew rules.
Yeah.
No more kosher. You don't have to be circumcised anymore. So you get to keep... Everybody gets to keep their foreskin. Yeah. And you don't have to perform, like, ritual sacrifices of, like, rams and sheep and all those kind of things. I mean,
that's nice.
That's right in... And you talk about the Old Testament, like, sacrificing animals is in there. See, the Garden of Eden, Cain and Abel.
Right.
Cain's raising the animals, Abel's raising the vegetables, I guess, and then he sacrifices the vegetables, and Cain sacrifices the animals. So this idea that you have to give something up, you have to kill something in order for the God to be appeased. I think there's something in our DNA, about that.
It's so weird.
Well, and the fact that it developed to the point where everybody's like, okay, we really need to win this battle, or we really need these crops to work out. So we have to kill a person.
Yeah.
Because what's the biggest thing we can give up?
Well, that's the thing, is the value
Your kid, not mine, yours.
The value that we place on human life.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I mean that's baked right into it. And I think the other things about human sacrifice and all the stories around it and everything is that, are we that different today? Like we obviously we'd look down on ritual murder, but it's been part of our DNA since the beginning. And so are we doing things in different ways today? Sacrificing, we're saying, like, well, okay, for the good of the group, like, who's got to go, or who can we successfully leave behind in order to get what we want. So even though you're not having a priest, like, all dressed up in makeup and stuff like that, cut somebody's neck open, or murder them with the dirty handkerchief, people do get sacrificed today at the good of something, for the good of something. Like, we were making jokes about drones before or whatever.
Oh, right.
And that's like, okay, well, if we, sometimes drones get it wrong and they blow up a wedding or something like that. Well, we are sacrificing those people at the wedding because we're afraid of the 3 terrorists or whatever that might blow up a bigger building.
Right.
So it's still with us, except it's on a less religious, standpoint. Interesting. Something else I was reading today. I was reading an interesting article from Mysterious Universe that talked about how our religious parts of the brain and our scientific parts of our analytical parts of the brain are different.
Really?
And so,
well, that makes sense, I guess.
Religious people tend to have a more, their strength tends to be in empathy. The empathetic parts of the brain tend to be more active and larger. And scientific people, the analytical parts, tend to be larger. And because women have more empathy naturally than men do, women are more religious than men.
Oh,
so in the basic, so when we were talking about Stannis' wife in Game of Thrones, and that she is immediately the true believer in the Lord of Light and something.
Go for it.
It kind of stems from the fact that women have more. I mean, you would think it less empathy because she's into human sacrifice, but more empathy because, religion has that.
She
I think
believes-
I think about my mother.
Mhm.
She's kind of religious, not really religious, but she's also very empathic towards, like, she's always feeling
sure.
other people's pain
Yeah.
to the point where we're watching a movie or something like that. And she's like, if the bad guy like gets yelled at by his mom or something, like, well, there's a reason he's like that because his mother's like that. So he couldn't really help it.
It's not his fault. Aw.
Right. So that's that kind of thing of the connection between the belief in the supernatural and belief in religion, and also your belief in almost caring about other people versus,
Interesting.
science and
Yeah.
analysis, and your belief in, well, we sacrifice this for that. The good
Right,
of this is
yeah.
the good of that.
Huh.
Anyway,
Very interesting.
yes. So that's our episode on human
Wow.
sacrifice.
Wow. Well, another thing aside from Joe versus the volcano that came to mind
Yeah.
when I was thinking about it was the Indiana Jones, was it Temple of Doom?
Yeah, the Thuggy guards.
Yeah. That was the first thing that I thought of, like, because that scene just terrified me.
Right. And if you don't remember, the bad guy's name is Mola Ram, and he can rip somebody's
Right.
heart out without like reaching through, like without like cutting it open. So he
Yeah.
just like he makes their chest open
It
up.
like melts, and then he
With,
grabs
like,
the heart, and the
magic.
heart's still beating. Yeah, that's so
And they're all
scary.
saying Kali Ma, Kali Ma.
Kali Ma.
And that's that goddess Kali
Aha,
that they're
okay.
talking,
Gotcha.
the Thuggy guards. They're called Thuggy, like, so in the book and in the video game, like the Thuggy guards and stuff for Indiana Jones. So that's how they kind of connected it
Okay.
with that. And there's a ton of examples of just human sacrifice. If you're looking for more, if you're like, hey guys, I'm really into this now,
Yeah.
not just in books. Even if we look at TV, Doctor Who, there's like 7 episodes from Meglos to the Aztecs we talked about, fires of Pompeii, Horns of Nimon, the Crotons. People are getting killed all the time. Gilligan's Island, they have an episode where they're like headhunters are chasing them and want to sacrifice them. And Highlander has an episode about human sacrifice. You go back like Clash of the Titans.
Wow.
Andromeda is chained to a rock. So when they release the Kraken, I'm talking about the good Clash of the Titans, not the remake, the original with all the little Ray Harryhausen like stop motion animated
Nice.
stuff, and the Kraken at the end is this big stop motion Godzilla like animation, and they're sacrificing Andromeda, and then Perseus has to come in and use the head of Medusa to save her. And it's baked into the system from the Norse mythology, the Japanese, to all of us. So like when we look down on these cultures and we're like, man, I can't believe those savages practiced human sacrifice. Just remember, we're not that far removed, number one. And number two, it could have been part of the reason why we have civilization the way it is now, for good or for bad. So
Very interesting
yeah,
indeed.
human sacrifice is part of us. The song this week is dedicated to anyone who's ever made a bargain with the man upstairs. When you're in trouble and looking to get out of that trouble, and you just tell God you'll do anything to get out. That's what this track is about. It's called Got Me in His Claws.
I've been so low because I got too high. I begged and screamed and pleaded to make deals for my life. I have surrendered to the Lord on high, and I've made my peace with Him. I've made my sacrifice, that sacrifice. When I thought life could get no harder coming down on me, well, I made every guarantee. I'd cut out all my lying, I'd stop cheating on my neck, I'll stop the smoking
Thank you for listening to today's episode. You can find us online at OthersidePodcast.com. Until next time, see you on the other side.
Hey, everybody, that's so funny, so funny. Okay. Okay, and coming back.